What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
Y'all about to hear some crazy shit.
And now, it's the Called Podcast. Live at the Called Studio in Trinity. With Travis Powers and Brendan Powers.
Josh Carroll in the house. Josh Carroll.
Hey.
Josh Carroll in the house.
He didn't get enough on the first time. He needs some seconds.
Nice.
Exactly.
It's like a beat that swings in and just fades out.
Yeah,
As
exactly.
we get on topic.
We used to have a beat that would do that, and then we got a fancy intro.
Yeah,
We've excelled
We've evolved.
at the next
We just gotta
level
get
up.
a timer
maybe.
going, yeah. Because that.
Yeah. Well, last time I was here, you guys were like, "Man, we went kind of long," and I went and looked back at all the other podcasts on the Called YouTube channel,
that's
It's
all right.
no big deal.
and I
man.
was like, "It's one of the shorter ones." I was like, "Oh,
Ours is one of the shorter ones?
yeah." This is like ours was 40 some minutes,
All right.
and all the other ones are like 50. But it did feel like a long.
Well, what's funny, like some people are harder to stop on a thought process than other people. I'm gonna just say it. I think being a live performer, you're so used to just having to like do things like bam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just it's 30 minutes, gotta go. Bye. See you later. Bye. Some people when they're on the train, you have to like tell them like 5 times, like, hey man, we're getting pretty close to that time to wrap up. And they're like, well, let me tell you this story about my dad for 40 minutes, and you're like, okay, cool, man. Here we go. No big deal though. Either way.
Yeah. Let me go into my life story a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
No, he's like, yeah, go ahead. No. And that's the reason why for the hour-long podcast. But go check
Right.
out the Called YouTube channel.
Right. Right.
Do please.
We should get a Q&A Facebook Live going.
That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
You know
Yeah,
what I
so
mean?
we're, according to what I've been told, Josh is going to try to come in here once a month.
Yeah.
Gonna try to do
I think it'd be cool. I mean,
It'd be
we
cool, too.
could talk about whatever. And I mean, he's got that thing going over there.
Yeah.
It'd be sick if that was like a Facebook Live and we just opened it up for like, we could pick and choose like
I mean, we could even
questions about stuff. We could bring a topic, you know. And,
we could do somebody else's phone too, you know.
yeah.
This is my switcheroony.
We could all go live for that matter.
Switch, and then this is where we're at. And back to here. There's Josh.
There's Jar.
There's me and Josh.
Me and the other
Brandon
to the
Josh.
frozen
Yeah, the other Josh. So, there's everyone.
That's sick.
So Josh,
Get a foot pedal for that.
Yeah.
A MIDI switch.
Good.
so you said you wanted to help out the boys.
Well, I thought we got 3 guys, and if we're wanting to talk about something that's gonna bring some help to the table, what could we
Right.
talk about?
Yeah.
Because it's tricky, as we spoke earlier, to talk about politics. It's tricky.
Yeah.
Right
It
now is a
is.
tricky time. I mean, everybody's
Tricky
talking.
time.
I mean, there's all kinds of people talking about it, but I don't think anybody's got a steady opinion. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
how about we zero in on something that really could bring some actual value to the guys, to the men? You know?
All right, men.
Yeah. The politics thing, real quick, is kind of like one of those things where you kind of fall into arguments and
Yep.
then, like I think we were saying earlier, people are losing friends over stuff, and it's not worth it.
No. It's
Because
not.
at the end of the day, you know, we all want to be happy. We all want the same thing. I think.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm delusional, but I really do believe that 95% of the world wants the same stuff, and
Yeah.
we just get bogged down in these fleshly arguments.
Yeah.
The flesh arguments.
Well, it's like, how do you really build an argument based on what exactly?
because it's a hot topic.
Well, like,
you know?
think about all your media sources. What are we dealing with?
Right.
So you're going to build like a very firm opinion on something that you're being fed through like your Facebook live
Right.
feed or your
Right.
Facebook feed. I mean, through the
That's
media,
the-
through the media
You gonna
channels.
tell me-
Come on, give me
you
a
gonna
break.
Tell me what you're afraid of all day.
It's just
Yeah, that's the plan.
very
That's the plan,
uninformed.
man.
So it's like then we got to stick together as the human race, you know?
Right. Right.
Understanding where we come from, who made us.
Right.
You know what I mean? Try to go about things from that angle.
I
You know,
For
agree.
sure. For sure.
So you mentioned something. You said you had some stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just thought, what could we dive into a little bit? Like, and I have a friend. I'm not going to mention his name, obviously, but
We'll put it on the screen.
Yeah. So this could be like a scenario situation. There's a lot of guys out there, and I thought, well, it's a tricky thing. Everybody's kind of like gun shy with COVID as far as dating is concerned.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, nobody really knows, like, I mean, all the social engagements, encounters that people were kind of used to engaging in are just sort of like, it's sort of weird for people to go out. I mean, I even play out. I play all over the place. You know what I mean? And I see it. It's like there's like a reservation that's there that was not really there as much.
One more barrier, maybe, like, does this person want me to be 6 feet away?
Right. There's just question marks everywhere. It's like you don't see, like, a guy doesn't go out and see like beautiful women. He goes out and sees floating question marks everywhere. You know, just
Right.
I mean, would it be weird? Is it going to be me too? Is it going to be?
Well, I'll say
the Me Too
something.
thing. You know,
For my my personal experience with being locked in a house for 8 months or whatever is, so I'm not an introverted person, but I'm a shy extrovert.
right?
If that makes any sense. So, like, I have no problem getting on a stage in front of 10,000 people and doing what I do, but then you put me one-on-one with a girl that I like, and my tongue swells up. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not because I'm nervous or whatever. It's just I'm shy. I'm shy one-on-one with that. I'm like, so you give me 8 months of being in my head and no socializing with anybody. It's even worse. You know what I mean? Now I'm just like, I do that thing in my head where I start playing all these mind games with myself, you know, like, oh, well, that person doesn't want to talk to me.
Right.
What are you talking about? You know,
And nobody likes rejection. Only those salespeople that knock on doors that maybe came from Utah, being in like the Mormon church, where it's like they're raised as little kids to knock on doors and you know,
Jehovah's
do
Witness,
Mormonism. You know, and that's why they're so good at door-to-door sales. It's like they're just like, that's a part of their fabric, really.
Yeah.
When you can take yourself out of it, the emotion out of it, and be like, you know, if someone rejects me, doesn't devalue you. We tend to like have these irrational beliefs. If somebody doesn't like me, that means that you're not valuable or something, you know, instead of, and that's just kind of like anxiety.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Well, validation, you said that word. That was a big one. Like on the way here, I was thinking validation is huge. Like, so I have a friend, he was not like in middle school, high school. He was like more the nerdy guy type, you know what I mean? Super smart guy, all into languages. And like, I thought he was cool. You know what I mean? In my mind, I'm like, this guy's so cool. Like, he does not get the credit that he deserves from, you know, from the ladies side of things, you know what I mean? And he would have crushes on these girls, and it just never was his thing. See, now he's like a career guy, and he's very high up in the military.
Oh, cool.
Makes a lot of money. And now he has this thing where he will go out with these girls. Like, he's in shape now. It's like this, it's like the classic story you see of a guy who's, you know, not being paid attention to at all, but, you know, still kind of has a lot of those components, but now he's like in shape. He's got some, you know, financial status and things like that. So now it's like the online dating game for him. You know what I mean? But it's a loaded pursuit, because he's going out with these girls just to kind of see where he can go with them, how far it can go, to sort of, you said the word validate, to validate himself,
right,
based on his, well, you could call it childhood, but it's more like your teen years. That time where you're like, I could never get anybody back. And now you're like, and he would go out, he would tell me these girls he would go out with. And I would say, would you want to marry her? No. I just wanted to see, like, you know, like if I made out with her, and then I'd go home. So it's like he's trying to validate himself based on what he was not able to get back in those earlier years. He proves it to himself, you know? And that's an interesting underlying reason for wanting to go on a date with a girl.
So when you're
a lot of psychology there, you know,
when you, like, this guy that was kind of like nerdy or whatever, and he's basing himself off of what that situation taught him. So he lived a certain way, or he was he felt like he was nerdy, so now he's trying to do something to make up for that.
Exactly.
So he's working out, he's making a lot of money, and now he's using people
to prove to himself that he
Right.
can.
And he probably doesn't mean to.
And he
we don't
doesn't
mean
even
to-
know it.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know it. Matter of fact, I told him that.
Right.
I said, dude, and he goes, what? Whoa.
Wait
You
a
know,
minute.
because all we know, like, look, it's like when somebody tells you something about your character, and or like all of us probably have dated that girl that's like, you do this, and you're like, you just got to explain it to me because I don't even know what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And finally, it clicks, and you realize that you have been doing that the whole time,
Right.
and you're like,
Oops.
Oop.
and then you change it, and you're like, man, if somebody wouldn't have said that, I would have never known.
Yeah.
It would have never been a thing. And that's the deal with him. And you say validation. Validation's a huge word. I literally put that in some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about because that is the driver, I believe,
Right.
for every bit of why one guy will call his buddy up. You know, you always see guys in threes. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like a loner. So you and I are pretty, well, I don't know. I think all three of us are kind of like that. You know,
Yeah,
we're not
chill.
really
I'm
pack
chill.
people. You know?
Yeah,
We're-
I like to be involved in like community things.
Right.
But when I was in high school and everything, I didn't really hang out with people I went to high school with. Like outside of high school, I had a different group of friends, and so I wasn't like, hey, what's everybody doing?
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
just
you
didn't-
kind of did your own thing. You
didn't
probably
interest
had.
me.
You seem like the kind of guy that probably had. You knew everybody probably knew you and probably
Right.
thought you were cool.
Yeah,
But
pretty much.
you weren't like a pack leader guy. You
I hope
weren't like
they think
running
I was
around with
cool.
3 people all
right,
the time.
Right.
You know those guys are like they're always with their 2 buddies.
Yep.
Right.
It's always back in my bar days. I sound like I'm talking like an old guy. But I see it to be a senseless pursuit now. So now I can say it as if it were a lifestyle previous to live, which it
Gotcha.
was. But you'd always see guys in packs of 3s. You know
It's
what I
true.
mean? So you think about bringing it back. It's like one guy would call up his friend and be like, hey, what are you doing tonight? I heard they're having a ladies' night over here. Then maybe Johnny can come too. You know? So they go out. And so if they stripped it back though, and they said, well, why did Daryl call Billy, who called Johnny, to bring the 3 group out to the bar for ladies' night? But so if we go all the way back and dig into the why behind the initial call, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, what exactly let's dig into what it is they're trying to get. You know what I mean?
that validation, that
Right.
false sense of security.
It goes to sex drive, first
Right.
of all. Okay.
Right.
And it's a primal need in everybody, obviously.
Right.
And, you know, if we're talking about design, you know, I think we might have touched on this last time, you know, like God's blueprint for the human race. You know what I mean? I always kind of use this sort of thing when I talk about this. Like if you bought a brand new Porsche and or say you bought a brand new Porsche and you told him that he's going to take it into a mud bog and take it mudding. Like, what would you say about that?
Like maybe you're not gonna do that.
And why? But why specifically? Like,
Well, I mean, you know, if you're talking about a Porsche, that's a expensive car. It's not designed to do that. It's not designed to go through the mud. The wheels aren't made for that. The car itself isn't. You know, it's just go get a Jeep and outfit it to
Right.
go in the mud.
right? You have a specific idea in your head about like what would be the correct pick for the application.
Right.
You talk about a Porsche. That's the last thing in the world you imagine that to do. But what
Right.
if it became a fad to take a Porsche mud bogging?
Right.
Over time, it would be like, well, that's kind of the thing to do. It seems like a kind of a dumb idea if we really strip it down, but that's what everybody's doing. So,
Right.
so that's what we're gonna do. So if we go all the way back into design,
Right.
we talk about this is what I get into sometimes when I talk to my son about what to do, what not to do. I take the whole right and wrong out of it. That stuff's important. But what I think is more important is like, man, look, some people can't get vibing with the whole wrong, right, good angel, bad devil. It's like some of that language gets old. When we
Right.
look at a father's intention for not only his son and daughter, but also his intention for his creation, we got to look at, well, what was it designed for?
Right.
What was the intention of the design?
Yeah.
And if we look at blueprint versus morality, especially if you're a Christ follower, which I am, especially when you look at that, it's like, okay, that is that component. But some of the things, man, some of the biggest changes for me have been when I look at something based on the design of it, the purpose behind the design, like the blueprint for it. So when we start to look at things like sexuality, there's a big giant argument about sexuality, as everybody knows. I mean, it's just amazing what's going on right now with everything, and that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, well, everything's sexualized now.
Oh man, and that's just we could jump right down that rabbit trail, but it's crazy because the argument seems to be right, wrong. You telling me, you're judging me, you're saying I'm wrong, or I'm going to go to hell for this. It's like, let's just take that argument off the table and let's take a peek at original design. Like, what was that Porsche designed to do? And when you bring it back to that level, you can bring it to a place of common sense and rational thinking.
Right.
And you don't even at that point touch the area of morality. It will go there because it's designed by the maker.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you take it back to that just bare minimal sort of like structural component of the why behind its design and the how behind its design, then you're like, well,
It's
we got a common sense foundation here.
That's a really interesting way to put that, because I'll give you a little bit of thing with me. So I am like anti-online dating. I cannot do it. I've tried it. I've dabbled in it just like a teeny weeny tiny bit. And there's 5 people. There's 5 types of people on online dating. So you're basically picking between one of 5. And it's like, if you've ever actually followed through on a date from an online thing, and I'm not saying it's impossible to find someone I've actually have friends who have like long-term relationships. And one of my friends is engaged now.
My buddy, I won't say his name, but he just got married not too long ago.
Yeah.
I got to be careful, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can also put my name on there. Like, what do you mean?
I think where he's going is you can also win the lottery if you win the money if you play the lottery.
Well, what did we say earlier? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah. An idiom.
Idiom. We were talking about it earlier about, like these phrases we use, like, the push comes to shove. Like, it took me, however many years to finally figure out what I spend about 50% of my, well, not 50, but 20% of my English language all day saying.
Right.
Just idioms all day long.
Awesome.
Well, at the end of the day,
I'm not going to lie.
rubber meets the road.
Gotta walk the walk, talk the talk.
Yeah. That's awesome. But so going back to what you're saying with the whole, sex drive and how that kind of is something we all have and blah, blah, blah. So something I've noticed over the last couple years for myself is that when that is the forefront of your reasoning to talking to someone you're interested in, if that's the first thing that you're looking at is, you're activating my sex drive, it's like you're already in a different park. You're already on a different road with that. I'm not saying it's impossible to be happy with somebody that was based on that kind of first contact, but it's like if you look at how society works now when it comes to dating and finding dates, it's almost always about, is she sexy? Is he sexy?
Yeah.
Where's the sex?
Right.
Sex.
Exactly.
It's always about the sex portion. It has nothing to do with like compatibility or, is this person a good person, or what does this person think about kids?
Right.
Or marriage, or what, all those things that are pretty important in terms of a relationship. So it's funny you bring it back to like the blueprint. Like what is the point of, because I've always said this, like even in high school, man, I was the guy who had one girlfriend in high school. You know what I mean? Like I dated one girl from like 8th grade to like 10th grade. And then I dated another girl from like the summer of 10th grade up until like my second year of college.
That's about how I was too.
I just wasn't interested in the quantity game.
Right.
It just didn't make any sense to me. I'm not dogging anybody if that's your game. I'd like to talk to you how happy you are, but anyway, that's another story.
Well, it's like there's a different like stab at why they do that. And that's kind of what I've researched, recently is why is it? What is the drive for Johnny to call Billy, who calls Tommy and say, hey, let's go to this girl's night we heard down the street? Like, what is it? Well, it's that crave. Okay. But then when we strip that down and we take a look at the actual crave for that, which, by the way, is supposed to be experienced in the context of the creator's blueprint for it, which is the best
marriage.
content, is marriage,
Right.
100%.
Right.
And there's reasons for that. It's not just, again, this is what you were saying about the kid in the stove and touching the stove last time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about like, oh, don't do that.
Right.
It's about, well, look, what's going to bring good results into your life and what's going to bring harm and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to wreak havoc. I mean, I don't care. You could take Jesus off the shelf in the conversation, which ultimately you can't because he made it. But
Right.
even if you do, you still could talk to a guy who's going around spending his money, spending his time on hunting for women,
Right.
continuous hunting for women. And I will show you a guy who's broke, depressed, who probably has a long list of women who hate him, maybe a couple illegitimate children.
Right.
Look, again, then we put Jesus back on the table. Even without him there, it's wreaking havoc in a person's life. Okay. This is what's interesting is this is what the enemy tries to twist when it comes to topics like that. And really, in essence, we look at things like money. You know what I mean? That brings it back to like the whole alcohol conversation. You know what I mean? There's this video, I posted it on my Facebook. It's this country song. It's a song about alcohol, like drinking alcohol to make a bad decision, because that bad decision led to this and it led to that. Making the idea of bad decisions a good one.
Right.
Okay. But that benefits the alcohol industry.
Yeah.
I mean, hardcore. I don't drink. I haven't drank in 3 years, and it's not
Wow.
not for moral reasons. It's strictly for
Just
common
not-
sense, I listened to a book called Alcohol Explained, and I've never been ever since this book. And it's not even a moral book. It doesn't come from a moral angle. It's all about rational thinking. It's about hey, here's the fine print. Now, after reading all the fine print associated with this little business transaction you're about to make, go ahead and do you want to sign on? It's like an AmScott deal. AmScott helps you pay your rent.
Right.
And then you call AmScott middle of the next week and say, like, I still don't have the money to pay you back. And they say, well, I'll give you a loan for what you owe us on top of the money you need for the next payment that you need to make. And it's a cycle, and it continues.
Right.
And for me personally, I don't, they say don't judge. It's like, don't judge, even though we all judge.
Even though we all do it. Yeah.
We're designed to judge, but not in a bad way. It's just how we construct our
Well,
lives.
we want to
But-
recognize certain things.
Right. Just understanding how to navigate. You have to judge. When you're driving on the street, you have to judge situations. But when you look at that, man, and you look at alcohol from more of a rational place of thinking, what did it give me versus what did it take away? Financially,
I always say the best.
emotionally.
I always say the best thing with alcohol is net zero. You might get to net
Right.
zero.
Well, I used to think for a long time, like anybody who's seen me out play, I used to think for a long time, like, man, when I get out there and start playing, if I'm not in the tip top mood, I'm thinking, oh man, they're going to think I don't want to be here. They're going to think I'm not fun. And if I just take a double tall Patron pineapple, I'll be right where I need to be.
Now it's
Okay.
fun.
And now I'm fun. But see, then once I had quit drinking, I basically would talk to people and they'd be like, man, you don't even understand this. But like when you used to drink, like your quality would kind of go down.
Ooh.
And it was like a massive perception shift, because the whole time I thought people didn't think I was fun at all until I got some drinks in me. And now I realize, wow, I'm actually a much better entertainer without it. It's
Right.
it's unbelievable.
I think every human being is. Anybody can say that they're a better guitar player drunk. I'm going to disagree with you.
Dude, look,
I'm going to disagree with you, man.
I believe that alcohol will go down as the greatest hoax of humanity that's ever existed in the history of us. Okay, that's just my opinion. We'll leave it there. But anyway, bringing it back, as far as sex is concerned, and that's another thing that attributes, because
Yep.
how many choices have I made, you made, anybody has made that they wouldn't have made
Right.
if it weren't
Drinking.
for the poison.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's interesting.
Liquid courage.
You don't even need the moral argument, man. You really could strip it back to just, hey,
It's fire water.
I'm gonna give this money. Now what am I getting back? What's the return on investment? You know what I mean?
Well, then you have the design thing, like you said. Sex was designed by a creator
Yeah.
for a certain situation, and now your motivation to go out is to get to that point first.
Yep.
And then
It's reversed.
it's reversed, it's backwards, and so now these places that contain these certain habits. Like you go there, you get drunk.
Yep.
Then you drive home, or you sleep with somebody that you don't know.
Well, dude, I had
You
this
know,
thought.
I mean,
I was
what's-
tearing down my band, and this is like 2 years after I had quit cold turkey. And again, this is not a. It really was way more down the alley of rational thought. Like, what does this take away from me? Let me tally up all the good experiences I've had versus the bad, and what good has it done? And understanding that the average person, the average drinker, spends $100,000 over a lifetime.
Wow.
$100,000. The average, just statistic. It's in that book, Alcohol Explained. But when you look at, I was tearing down my band at like 2 a.m. in St. Pete, and I was looking around, and it was 2 a.m. and there's fights breaking out.
Everybody's just,
I see these cops, man, just standing with their hands behind their back, just waiting. And I see these cops, and I thought to myself, it was just this like epiphany that hit me. I thought, if everybody sort of just woke up to this hoax, do you know how many people would lose their jobs? Cops,
Right.
lawyers, judges, bartenders.
Or maybe a cop could spend his time, because they're standing there like this. They're like, "Oh, we're here for the drunk people."
They're waiting for crime.
Yeah.
they're just waiting for someone
If there
to
was
smash a bottle over
if there was
somebody's
no 2 a.m. drunk crowd, there would not be a cop there. Okay.
Right.
So when I started thinking about that, I was like, wow, it's crazy to think about how that bleeds into what happens in relation to male sexuality as well. And then bringing it into some of the things that one of the topics was, the initial date. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a common thing for people. It's become common because not only does it cause, a lot of people to make money in other areas, but specifically it helps the alcohol industry. But the common phrase is, "Hey, you want to grab a drink?"
Yeah.
It should be.
It is the most common phrase. But let's just talk about that for a second.
right.
You're about to take a girl out you don't know from some dating site. This is what I told my buddy I was just telling you about, because he was taking these girls out. And this leads to a whole other thing. But he would take them out, and they'd get out there, and all of a sudden, he's not getting to know this girl for who she really is. He's getting
Right.
to know the intoxicated buzz side of this girl. She can be a complete. You ever see those girls? What do they say? They say what are the bitch face or whatever?
Yeah, RBF.
RBF or whatever
Resting,
it is.
yeah.
She could be a complete, but you would never know. As soon as she takes that first drink of that cocktail, it's like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? And then you spend the next 3 months taking her out for drinks, just to find out the first night you say, you know what, we've been going out for drinks like for the last 3 months. Like, why don't we hang out like for a night and just not have any alcohol? And all of a sudden you see the real person. You're like, I don't want nothing to do with her. And then you realize you've wasted the last 3 months of your life.
Or vice versa, maybe.
Right.
Maybe at that point, it's kind of like, if I dial it back a little bit, if this is your common behavior, it's almost like you're probably not in a good place to even start dating.
Right.
You're kind of being immature about it. I would always like to go somewhere like for coffee.
Coffee. That's it.
Yeah,
man. That's the first point. Okay.
Yeah.
No, if anybody's out there, guys listening, no more. You want to grab a drink. You want to get coffee because you're right. It's where does the desire for that drink stem from? Is it a desire to want to find an actual, like a wife, and want to create what God designed sex to be experienced with and how? And that the unit in which it's the safest and the most constructive,
Right.
and the least destructive
For you, for your
everybody.
community,
That's for the
your
women that you
kids.
engage with. That's for everybody.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say you kind of went on a story, so I didn't want to interrupt you. But when you said a phrase where you're like, "Yeah, these men, they make a career out of hunting women,"
It's true.
and I'm like, "Well, what woman wants to be thought of as
But
hunted?
but women
being hunted?
women do the same thing, but it's for a whole different purpose. It's
I
for
get it.
it's for a free dinner and free drinks.
I get it. Yeah, both parties are at fault, but it's just like, I think that's a big part of why we have all these social misfires
Right.
between men and women nowadays, is because we have a whole generation of men that are, let's go hunting.
Well, men need to learn to value first of all, they need to learn how to value their time
Yeah.
and their money. Okay.
Yeah.
And if they're going about it from the angle of correct expectation and correct intention, That's the whole validation piece. That's like an entire conversation because
Right.
when you strip back the reason for a guy, like this is what I was telling you about my friend who was trying to make up for what he couldn't get all through middle school and high school, taking these girls out that he would never marry, but he thinks they're kind of like plastic, sort of like they're hot, but it's not really his type, but he wants to just see if he can.
Right.
You know,
Right.
he doesn't even go all the way. It's
Plus,
just
he's seeing like that's what everybody else does.
exactly,
You know,
and nobody's telling him any
the
different.
cool guy that I looked up to is going and doing this.
Right. And guess what? It makes money.
Who should we be looking up to?
The bars make money. This is the thing. Is what's funny about this is this doesn't help a lot of the places I play. But you know,
Right.
I'm a truth guy. You know what I mean? But look, let's take a look at it. So we get that out of the way. We say no more. Hey, do you want to get a drink? It's like, do you want to get coffee? And that's if you are coming at sex or in relationships with the right intention. And if you're not, then we have to strip it back and say why. If you don't want to go out with that girl because you're not trying to experience getting to know her because of the intention to want to be with her as it relates to the God intended way,
Right.
which is the
Let's call a spade a
safest
spade.
way.
Yeah.
Why is it that you'd want to go out with a girl just to get laid? Okay. Let's talk about that for a second.
Well, it's almost like
drug.
Let's talk about that. Let's get in there.
They're addicted. They're using somebody to validate an urge in them. They think if I can get this girl and I could sleep with her, that makes me cool. That makes me a catch, you know. And that's not really what. And we're talking about a good circumstance. That's not what a good woman is looking to do.
Right.
So I was like kind of like one of those people that would go out, and I was like considered myself a good guy in that way. So when I went to the bars and I went to the clubs, I was looking just to dance, have a good time, have a couple drinks, and loosen up. And my intentions weren't really who can I take home and sleep with. I just want to hang out.
Yeah,
It's fun.
I'm just wondering, you know, if we talk about, because there's 1,000 other guys that are out there to do that.
Sure.
Right, sure.
And so the question is why? And this is what I've thought about quite a bit, because I have some friends who, you know, one of them is like that. Another one is the exact opposite. You know what I'm saying? So I've been
Right.
able to get both angles. I have one that'll text me and be like, hey, I just met this girl. I'm going to send this text. What do you think about this text? And I'll literally, I thought about starting like a text service, you know what I mean? Where
They're like Will Smith and Hitched.
yeah. And I'll be like, well, why do you say this? And I'll send it back to him. Then you get this other friend of mine it's like he plays the field relentlessly and he doesn't even understand why until trying to focus in on why. And I've kind of been able to sort of like come to some understandings on some things for myself through life. And like when you look at you said it right at the get-go, you said validation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, what are we driven by? What are we even here for? We're here for purpose. We are here.
Yeah.
We want to make a difference. What are we even born for, man?
Yeah, just
You know?
before I got in the car and I was coming up this way to meet up with y'all, I was thinking like I'm that guy that would come up with these really good ideas and I get this motivation in me and I'd start something, I'd never finish it.
Right.
And especially with songs, I'm awful with that. Okay.
I understand that pain.
So, but the whole time I wasn't serving who I was supposed to be. I was serving this feeling I got.
Right.
Right. And then so the fun was in the start. It wasn't in the long suffering that me and him have talked about, like long suffering. Like you need to endure things to get somewhere that you're supposed to be sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes you hit the lotto, like we were talking about later. Sometimes a guy does go on a dating site, you know,
Just bam.
and boom,
Yeah.
finds
Well, that's a friend of mine. He did
you know,
that.
Well,
Yeah.
you're playing the
Yeah.
lottery. Let's call it for what
No,
it is.
it is,
You're
yeah.
playing the lottery.
It is. It's
you're
it
a
is
small
that way.
percentage
Yeah.
of situations. And so you get in this, you start serving a feeling in you. And that's what the motivation is, the sex drive.
Right.
And then you're going somewhere where you can get that, but you're not going to get any good return off of that.
Right. Right. Well, the way I see it is like I've kind of tried to break it apart in a way that there's that physical element of it, which is purely, I believe, God installed for the purpose of experiencing the joy of the experience.
Mhm.
Okay. And that again is for a specific context.
Yeah, marriage.
And it's not so much out of like, do this. It's like out of, hey, safety for my creation, protection
Right.
for my creation, success in that department as it relates to everybody involved in that, kids, wife, husband,
Right.
that unit. Okay. So that is to be physically enjoyed. Okay. The other thing that I've thought about, and this is why I was messing with the idea of accomplishment and the thing that drives men to be doing this and, you know, wanting to learn that like song on drums that you've been working on learning on drums for how long, and you finally you got it, or like you did that video that you wanted to do like an original drum project, and you just wanted to release that video and get it out there because that's your expression of creation and you want to succeed. Okay. How many times, just like what you're talking about with like the whole, like I would want to do this, wouldn't do it. I mean, how many times, dude, and I understand that feeling where you set out to do it. Your intention is to do it. You don't do it. And then you feel like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, now let's talk about sex. Okay. What gives a man an immediate sense of accomplishment?
Right. That's what it is, man. It's like any other addiction you can have as a person. They're all physical. Every addiction is physical.
Yep.
Working out is physical. A drug is physical. Alcohol is physical.
Right.
Sex, it never stops. There's nothing you can do to build an addiction that doesn't involve the physical side of your
Right.
body.
But it's what it is it's displaced
Yeah.
push for validation.
Right.
So
Right.
here we are talking about the things that we want to do, the song, you know, the drum accomplishments and the music accomplishments, you know, all these things that would make us feel validated in the way that we should feel validated. And then we allow there to be a hole in the boat that causes us to be like, well, this is quick access to some fast validation. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. And this is the problem, I think, where a lot of guys it's understandable, the feeling, but I don't think it's so much that drives men to be doing this. It really is a sense of displaced ambition.
Yeah,
I
it makes
really
them
believe
feel
that.
like they're rocking.
It's like if you were to take all of that crazy energy to want to take Billy and Bobby out to the bar on a girls' night to go get laid, and you were to strip it back, and if you told those guys, hey, it really is because you guys are bound up with like endless ambition and creative drive,
Off balance.
and you are displacing that. And not to mention all the stuff we talked about maybe the deficiencies that they had growing up in high school. Maybe they never could get a girlfriend. Now they got
Right.
guns, you know,
And money.
and tattoos, which,
Right.
you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And it just depends. It depends on whatever, what anybody thinks is now I'm here, I was there, and now I'm going to go get what I couldn't get. You know, you blend that with a desire for ambition, desire to create. And then if that stuff's displaced, you combine that with the gratification of physical love. Now let's talk about mommy.
It's potent.
Let's talk about mommy.
Yeah.
Right.
What was it like with mommy growing up?
Yeah.
Did you get the physical affection that you needed?
Right.
Let's talk about these three. I've come to kind of call them a big three sort of combo type thing, because we're talking about the physical component, which is there no matter what anybody wants to say or do, and that's a good thing. In the right context, it's right. And then we talk about the validation piece. What were our deficiencies in middle school and high school, and you know, did we get rejected a lot by women, and now we're trying to make up for it?
Yeah.
Or is it career based, creative outlet based? You know what I mean? Accomplishment, ambition based. Because if you took a guy who's going on every weekend with his friends, I bet you if you asked him, are you happy at your job? Do you like your job? I bet you most of them would be like, no.
You know what that reminds me of, man? What, years ago, remember How I Met Your Mother? Did you ever see that show?
It's been a long, but I
Okay, so there's a character in that show, Barney, you know, and he's like this total womanizer, and he's very successful. Like in the whole show, he's the wealthiest guy in the whole friend group. It's like Friends, you know,
Yeah.
but more modern. And he's got like this book. He's got this giant playbook of how to get a girlfriend, how to get a date. And he's like chronically, he's never in relationships. He does not want to be in relationships. He is afraid of relationships, but he only wants to hook up with women. And it's every episode he's got like 3-4 girls
Yeah,
on
yeah.
repeat. And then as the show goes on, you realize he's extremely unhappy.
Yep.
He looks at all the other people on the show that are like having kids, and he's like extremely depressed about that. And then towards the end of the show, he makes like a complete 360.
Right.
Where he's like, okay, so half my problem is me, like doing this. This is
Right.
what's keeping me from finding the person I'm supposed to be. So it just reminded me of that, because I feel like so many people, they get stuck in this trap of like, no relationships, but I'm going to hook up once a week.
Right. Right.
What do you think that is, dude?
Exactly.
That's a shallow relationship. And something my uncle told me this years and years and years ago. I think I was like 14, had my like first girlfriend ever, and my hormones were starting. You know, I was like actually interested in women
Yeah.
for what they were, not just like, oh, it's cool to have a girlfriend because it's, you know, whatever.
Right.
It's like you legitimately are like, oh, girls. And he looked at me. He goes, Brandon, I just want you to know something, man. He goes, any woman that you engage with sexually, you have a spiritual bond with them. No matter
man.
what,
So
no matter
true.
what or what you do
Soul
or do
ties.
not know about that person. He goes, no,
Yeah.
I know that's kind of controversial to say that, but he goes, take it from an old man, Brandon.
Right.
He goes, I have girls that I haven't talked to in 30 years, and I still think about these women.
Yep.
And it was a one-time thing. And so for some reason, they still come up in my head. He goes, you will never forget these people.
That's crazy.
So be careful. He goes, I just want to warn you as a young kid who's
Right.
just now getting on the boat, basically, be careful who you share this with, because it's never going away.
Right.
And so as I kept that in my head all my life, then you meet these people who, by the time they're in their mid-40s, they're absolute drunks.
Yes.
And the only
Yeah,
way they can
man.
function in life is just to get slammed. And you're like, well, why do you have to do that? Oh, my ex-wife.
Oh man.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's
dude.
like it never
I
stops.
do want to mention something real quick because I'm thinking about somebody listening to this conversation. And there are people out there that do go to clubs and bars to do this stuff. And I don't want them to get the wrong idea like we're beating up that type
No,
of
it would be more so like just really sit down and ask yourself why.
It's like
what is it? What is
yeah,
the real
sit down,
reason? Just
but it's-
ask yourself.
but-
Look yourself in the mirror.
like for me not completing music or me not completing these are patterns people are on, and if they're unhappy they need to find out what the pattern is, right, and they need to break that pattern,
Right. Well,
right.
and you said something a second ago that made me think of this conversation I had a couple years back. This guy was telling me, he's like, I'm done with this girl. Like, I've been married to her for this long, and I'm just done. Like, I'm done. I'm like, well, I mean, what do you get? He's like, I'm getting divorced. Are you kidding me? And and I just think, you know, even when you look at statistics, I just think that it always makes, like, in my mind, I think I have a moral code for this, but at the same time, I do think that even statistically, if you're talking about remarrying, it doesn't look good.
Right.
If you're talking about trying to spend time with your kids, it doesn't look good for you.
Yeah.
You're better off trying to make it work. Okay. This is just statistically speaking. This is not even bringing Christ into it. If I did, it would make all the sense in the world, according to my beliefs.
Right.
But we could even take that out and look at just the problematic side of getting a divorce. So I ask him, I say, so, okay, well, let's paint a picture. Like, what would you do different?
Right.
If you were going to get a divorce? Let's talk about that. Well, man, I'm like, she's only like the second girl that I was ever with. Like, I just want to get out there and just like experience the world. I want to play the field.
He got his mind in there.
Yes. And I said, okay. So, okay, let's think about that. So you get divorced, then you go out and you go and play the field. Let's look at that like 3 years from now. Okay. The likelihood of you having maybe an STD, maybe having another, like an illegitimate child, having a long list of chicks that are mad at you because you just wanted to play the field and that's why you hooked up with them. And then you sitting there broke because of all the nights you spent at the bar trying to hook up in a studio apartment when you used to be with your wife in like this nice 5-bedroom house.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
They're starting
What
to
else would
see-
you do? What else would you do if you got a divorce? Well, I mean, like, dude, I never really had a party phase. I never really got to experience that because I grew up kind of sheltered, and it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Like, so you get divorced and you go down and you kind of go out and try some drugs and you go have a party phase, you know, like, let's look at that 3 years from now. So good chance you might have a good strong addiction going to something. Who knows what?
Liver
You'll
problems.
definitely be broke for sure. Yeah, I mean, depending on health situations, it all doesn't look good. Not from a moral place, even though we could go that trail.
It's like
It's so practical.
It's this shiny object, or seeing the shiny object, and it's just a thought or an idea. And my mom used to always say, when you break up with somebody and you date somebody else, you're just inheriting a whole new set of different problems.
Exactly.
And that you don't see the ones because that person looks like everything the person you're with is not.
Right.
And you think that's the fix to what your problems are, instead of looking at yourself introspectively and saying, what can I do to
Right.
change things? Can I look
Exactly.
at myself in the mirror and say, I've done everything internally I can do? Most people won't even try like a counseling, or because they, that's not cool, or
Right.
I don't need help. I already got it figured out.
Right. Right.
And it's like,
And I think
okay.
it could be like going to like encouraging people to go about getting into those situations the right way. And then that brings us full circle all the way back to what we're talking about from the beginning. You want to get a drink?
Right.
I mean,
They
Come on,
go
come
for the hoax.
come on. Let me get it. Okay. So first of all, let's just say my intentions are right. And this is what I told a friend of mine, because he wants to look, it's a human right to want to experience creating a human being.
Right.
It is the most amazing thing,
Right.
my son is my blood and my air. I mean, it's like, I don't, there's nothing else for me, man. That's all. That's the most
He's a
amazing
cool kid
thing
too,
for me, man. And everybody should have the right to be able to do that. So you think about the things we get to do just being humans. It's like, we get to have a kid. We get to create a kid. And unless somebody was either like a real, like, secluded only child, or maybe they had like parental issues and, then maybe they don't want to have any kids, or they just see the state of the world. It's kind of understandable to some degree. But for the most part, it's a genuine desire coming out of all human beings to want to replicate themselves and see that process take place. It's so then when you look at, and then all women, they want to have their wedding experience. I mean, and every man would like to be able to say, I married the woman of my dreams. I had a child. Those are life pillars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Markers.
So if in fact a person is going about life from that angle in the pursuit of trying to find a relationship, the first thing would be, okay, well, let's just pluck out the whole idea of let's go get a couple drinks. Okay. Sticking up for my gentlemen and for my ladies, I would say, hey, if you have good intentions, let's go get some coffee. And the crazy thing about right now with COVID, I feel like I just did a wedding on Saturday, and man, the enthusiasm for marriage is way up. And here's why. I believe because of what's happened with COVID, it's caused this sort of scarcity in the area of, see, like women, if they thrive off, it's a motivator for a woman to be beautiful, because it's what they are noticed for, is their beauty.
Right.
You know what I mean? And men, as we know, we're very visual.
Right.
We are very visual creatures. You know what I mean? So you start lowering the opportunities for not only the men to be able to see option and for the women to be able to experience the attention from men. You all of a sudden have the situation where there's a scarcity. And now you got a lot of women that are like, well, enough of that crap. And this is a great time.
They found out that they can live without all that garbage.
Right. And I think we're actually coming back into a good time.
I think so too, man. I really do. I think COVID was a big I've been saying it since the beginning. I think it was a big wake up call for most people.
Right. And so like this wedding, it's amazing because you say a wake up call, and it's one of a handful of weddings I've done since COVID, you know what I mean? But it's just the energy and the enthusiasm toward marriage is, to me, from my perspective, like higher than I've ever seen it. Mm. And I think really a lot of it is there isn't this just common sort of like, it's becoming harder for people to link up. It's becoming more difficult. There's more borders there.
That to me makes logical sense, almost like if stuff, it's kind of like you get into a point in life where you lose something, and then you really realize what's important.
Exactly.
You know, everything you're given very minimal means, and you're like, well, what's most important here? Food,
Right.
air,
My children.
water.
That's it.
You know, family.
Exactly.
Not going out and getting hammered.
Right. Well, what does the Bible say, man? It's like what the enemy meant for harm, God turns it around and
Right.
he uses it for good.
Yeah.
Because, God is what the Bible says is omniscient, which means he's all knowing. He knows the future, the past, and the present all in one snapshot.
Right.
Satan does not have that same capability. No. If he did, he would have done something about Christ in the womb as soon as he found out it was there.
Right.
There's no way. He's not omniscient. All he does constantly is God does this, Satan responds.
He reacts. Yeah.
God does this, Satan responds.
Right.
Satan does something. There's something to do
for us, even.
Right.
We do something, Satan responds.
That's it. That's
know?
it.
Or
we screw something up, is what you're saying.
Yep, and or we make a mistake, and he steps in and goes, "That was great." Do that again for the next 6 years.
And then God takes that mistake that Satan thinks is going to destroy you.
Yeah.
And he says,
rebirth.
He says, you thought you were going to take him out, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use that, bud. You know what I'm saying?
You thought scaring Jonah away into the ocean was going to work, but here we go.
There's so many people that think their life is over too. That's kind of maybe a send out idea to some people. It's like there's a lot of people that feel like I can't go to church. Oh my gosh, man! If anybody, I can't be used. Are you kidding me? There's so many. Look,
right.
And the Bible is so clear about certain things. That all things work together for the good to those who love God and are called according to His purpose.
Romans
He will take
8:28.
anything that you can stir up, and anything the enemy can stir up in your life, and He will utilize that for you, the good of your future.
Yeah, you get that people are living off of this, what you term as the hoax, and that is something, the devil always has a counterfeit for something that is good.
Right.
And then we are by nature of the flesh, so we like to build our own kingdom up and then present that. And then so someone that hasn't done that thinks that's what they need to bring to God. Oh, I can't be used. And it's like, no, you're in a perfect place right now.
Absolutely. And that's, I think that's
empty.
Right. And that's the biggest trick in the book a lot of times is those are the best times for people to come to God and say, oh, look, I don't know. But those are the times when the enemy works the hardest to say, you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Because he knows it's the danger. He's seen it before. He's been around for a very long time. For Christians, think about it. We're surrounded by lies.
Right.
The whole world, the media, TV, music, what you are supposed to think is sexy, what you're not supposed to think is sexy or unsexy. And we're surrounded by that. And the devil was able to deceive a third of God's angels.
Yep. He's a master.
Yeah, he's a master.
Deceiver. He
So
ain't an
you're-
idiot.
So when you got your friend over there who's going, I'm done with this. I'm out. I'm going to get a divorce.
Yeah. He's being peddled lies.
Yeah, it's all in the mind. It's all in this mental thing where the devil's flow likes to attack our mind first, and then he works in our bodies, and then he gets our heart.
Right.
And so when we're sitting here, a lot of people struggle with alcohol, addiction, pornography. You're feeding your subconscious. You're feeding your heart.
Right.
And that's a very hard thing for us to reverse. And I just encourage people to look at where the patterns are in your life that are leading you to destruction.
Right.
And what motivates you. We all have fallen for hoaxes of some kind of thing. And one thing that seems to come up is like, there are uses for everything. Everything is permissible. Everything exists for a reason. And it's us that misuses these things.
Right.
Like sex.
Right.
Validation.
Right.
I'm going to go out. I'm going to validate myself by using other people.
Right. I'm going to gain that sense of, and and it's not just accomplishment that gives us that sense of validation, but it is the love of God that gives us that sense of validation.
That's the truth. That's
that
the
missing piece.
counterfeit.
People need to understand that at one point we were in full connection. We were in full synchronization with the creator of the world. We were fully synchronized.
Yes.
So there's this missing thing. It's like I tell my son, it's like, okay, well, of course you want to drive. But I'm telling you right now, once you do drive, there's going to be a whole long list of other things you're going to want. It's never going to end. You know, people talk about destiny. You know, the church for a long time, it was like from the year, say 2000 on up to, I would say, probably right before COVID. It was all about prosperity, like, oh, money. God's going to help me pay my bills. God's going to help me do my dream. The destiny is heaven. The destiny is eternity with God. Resynchronization with Creator. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big deception, right? Is, you know, what can you get now? What can you gain?
Right.
What can you gain? It's like, what can we give? That's the whole thing about the Called podcast. That's when I see you guys release this. I was like, this is going to be such a powerful tool to give, to help, especially in a time when people are skirmishing, like just rummaging to find truth online. I mean, it's just, I don't even know where to look for news right now. I mean, I you know, somebody said this site or that site, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll check it out. But
it's really difficult. The purpose of everything is being misused. The media used to be was formed, from what I understand, it was supposed to be a fourth branch of government. It was supposed to be to keep the government in check. And now the people of the government own those media outlets, and they're telling us what they want us to hear.
That's a whole conversation, man. Wow.
Don't
get me started in there, man.
I'm not going to
I'll jump in that box and start.
Yeah, I don't want to go there, but
breakdancing.
I just want people to recognize that everything is reversed and up on its head now, and we're all trying to seek joy.
Yeah, 100%.
And the validation thing is like a counterfeit of joy.
Right.
So you think you know how to get to joy when you're not following the Romans 8:28.
Right.
When you're not immersed in the love of God, you don't know the direction. You don't know. It's like taking a plow and you're plowing it and you got your head turned around.
Yeah.
You know, and where's it going?
Exactly.
It's totally lost its purpose.
Right.
It's totally off track. It's not going to do what it's supposed to.
Right.
And and everything's got a design. And
like what you said,
and it's good, yeah.
Well,
exactly.
and what you said about plowing, that's interesting. I just had this flash of an imagination of a guy like plowing in the middle of a desert somewhere, not even knowing why he's there, but he just saw a bunch of other people doing it.
Right.
So he's doing the action, thinking that he's going to get something because he sees everybody else getting it, whatever that is.
Right.
But who's benefiting? The alcohol industry. Oh,
yeah. And then and we they want to try and control us and make their life easy. So you have the devil's trying to make his job easier on himself.
Right.
So he's just trying to use us and for what he wants, and which is power, greed, destruction.
Oh yeah.
And we are the perfect tool to fulfill God's needs and wants, or not really needs, but wants. What he wants for us, he wants to share this kingdom with us, this kingdom of heaven, and that's really what my hope is in this place, is to expand the kingdom of God. So
absolutely,
because that's where the real joy is, when you see the outcome of something and you know that it's God's glory.
Right. And also we know, because you know the intention is right, that we're here to be like, okay, how can we be tools of God in a way that really will reach people outside of all the lingo?
Yeah.
All of the Christian jargon.
Right.
There's a lot of it, man.
Yeah.
And people have an automatic radar for it. It's like they hear certain words, it triggers, oh, he's one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just they listen for it. They don't even know it's an unconscious listening.
Yeah.
They hear a couple things and it's like, oh, okay, here we go.
It's
yeah.
a very complicated lie.
But it has to come from the heart. Love. If it comes from a place of love and not a place of jargon and, you know, Christian terminology being thrown across a board table, it's like, then I think we'll accomplish something. But the thing about it was, initially the thought was, you know, think about the why behind why you calling Billy and Bobby to go out. Okay. if you can sit down and say, does it have something to do with me trying to accomplish? And if it does, instead of thinking about calling up to get some drinks and go out with your buddies to try to get uselessly laid, try getting online and just saying about what you want to do with your life as far as a career. Even ask God, like, what am I supposed to do with my life? Start spending the time investing it into yourself. Say, what is my ambition in life? What does God design me to do?
Yeah, there's already so many people out there doing that stuff. You really don't need to include yourself in on that stuff. There's somebody doing it for you. So try something different and see what happens. You know what I mean? Like what's the risk?
Right. And then also like the self-esteem portion of it.
Right.
It's like, if it is because, maybe you look at yourself and be like, well, I didn't really get a lot of my mother's affection. And maybe I never had a girlfriend in middle school, high school, or,
right.
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is that relates to you feeling like I'm going to get this to feel like I can.
Yeah.
Because it will make me feel like I'm one of those guys that can get a girl or girls.
Right.
Which has this effect, again, that brings back to not only self-esteem, but again, to ambition and validation and all of the which. But God will fill a lot of that. But there needs to be that nut and bolt conversation, though, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Starts off with coffee, right?
Coffee. No more of this guy. Look, and here's the thing. I have a couple friends, again, one of them we spoke about, the other one, same exact thing. They go out with a girl, they experience a memorable night. The next day they get a text saying, hey, you're really nice, but I just don't think it's going to work. And they're mind blown by it because they thought they had a great night. And then I tell them, well, it's because you gave them free drinks and a free meal on a night that they had nothing else to do. Unfortunately for you.
Right. Yeah.
So the time, the money, the energy, and not to mention the person that you think you're going to get to know that you're really not getting to know across the table over some drinks will be completely solved just by removing, let's get a couple drinks out of your vocabulary and adding, hey, let's get coffee. Not only that, it will eliminate the women who are trying to get into your pockets. If they look at a man and say, coffee, you got the wrong one you're talking to. But if they say, oh yeah, that sounds awesome, then maybe she actually is attracted to me.
Right.
Maybe she's not just trying to get a free meal. Maybe she really does want to get to know me.
Yeah.
And you eliminate
you can
much
pay for
garbage.
You can be a gentleman.
Pay for the coffee.
Pay for the coffee.
Come on.
All right, Duncan, you listening? You got a sponsorship coming up here? Anyway, so that was our first, I think our second hour-long episode.
Yeah, I don't know how long that was, but
it was an hour and 1 minute.
Beautiful.
So it was our first hour long. So we're going to get Josh in here. The plan is the first Monday or close to the first Monday of the month.
Yeah, right? Kind of a kickoff. Kick off your month. We don't know what we'll figure out what we're going to talk about each time.
Yeah, we'll get a system going here. We'll probably have to make a whole new show just for this, but
no, this is great.
It'll be like
I think
series.
It completely lines up
like a series. It's like a series.
Yeah,
it's like a mini series within because it's it's the same person and the same kind of. It's good. That'll be good. So. If you guys like what we're doing here, please follow the channel. You can also check us out at thecalled.life. That's our website. So, Josh,
you can
coming back, bro.
You can also donate at our Patreon now, which would be really cool. We really, truly believe that if you do that, you'll be blessed.
Yeah, you guys help these guys out. Let's just put it this way. There's a couple things in my life that I spend time on as far as like something that doesn't involve me getting money or anything like that. And it's because I believe in what's happening inside of that thing. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So absolutely. If you guys feel led, any listeners, to help these guys out. And this is a great thing. I got a lot of good vibes for this in the future for you guys and for everybody that joins.
We're just trying to do some good, man. Just trying to spread some light. That really is the motivator here.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the beginning.
And people need it.
People do need it, man. All right, guys. Well, thanks for that, and we'll catch you on the flip flop.
On the flip flop.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Join us again next time for some more crazy stuff. This is The Called Podcast with Travis Powers and Brandon Powers.